Well, we are kicking off another episode of Bitz About Botz, and I am so thrilled that Jesse Tutt from Alberta Health Services is here to join us. And you have been all over the map as far as innovation, really showing everybody how it's done in a lot of ways. And what I really love about the story that you shared with me when we met this year is how judiciously Alberta Health has gone about approaching their RPA and ultimately a hyper automation program. So Jesse, tell us a little bit about yourself. I'm really excited to have you here. I think you're in a spot that a lot of our clients and a lot of friends that we meet in the automation community are at, which is what do we do next? And what tools do we need to do that? But before we get started there, let's talk about what it takes to get started for those who are just kind of thinking it through. So give us a little bit about your background and how it was that Alberta Health got started with the RPA bug.
Sure. I've been working in IT for 21 years. Started in the technology stack, moved into a kind of a TBM role in analytics, and then migrated ultimately to lead the intelligent automation practice here at AHS. And within the how we got kind of kicked off, we ended up doing a little bit of research on robotic process automation. At least within my team, the organization has actually been using RPA technology for about 20 years now. So we've been implemented a few of the earlier technologies to support reporting in one of our EMRs, the Meditech solution. We use Boston Workstation, and so basically the new age technologies. We did a RFP as a result of some piloting work that we did. We had a recommendation from one of our really large audit that came up with some financial recommendations to implement a new automation program. And so the recommendation from the top leadership to implement the automation program and the RFP coincided. The timing was perfect. We had the recommendation landed around December of 2021. We implemented the automation program at that in January timeframe, and then we actually were able to actually complete the RFP, award the RFP, and launch our first automation within 3 weeks.
Well, those are unbelievable record timing speed to deployment. So that's fantastic. And I think what you touched on is something that a lot of folks have to go through, right? Is understanding that there might be a need, a business need, but there needs to be support from the stakeholders top down. And then, of course, adoption and understanding of what that execution is going to look like bottom up. So it sounds like you had all the stars align and kind of kicked that off. So I understand, that you guys went through an RFP, which is one of the tried and true ways about going about doing it. But as you're looking to scale your program, we've talked a little bit about some of the different technologies that you're evaluating going into next year. And I know that, as part of your, continuous innovation mantra at Alberta Health, we are always looking for better ways to optimize. So when you're thinking about how to make your program bigger, better, more efficient, reap more monetized value for the organization, what are the kind of technologies that you guys are considering now? And how do you make those decisions without going out for an RFP each time you want to add to the stack?
So we, excuse me, we implemented, kind of kicked off the automation journey in my prior team using my background is analytics. And so we had really strong ETL capabilities. We have a ton of code right now that can connect to probably 10 different types of databases. In AHS, we have around 1,800 large enterprise applications. And so ingesting data from all of them, we use SSIS, SQL Server Integration Services. It allows us to be flexible. It's all C#.NET code. So we had that technology. We layered on, obviously, the robotic process automation capability about a couple of years ago. Since then, we've added, obviously, API integration. And so we do a lot of, booking Zoom meetings and booking, creating tickets in ServiceNow. So API integration. AI, we all basically got some training for my team to learn how to really do machine learning, develop and train machine learning algorithms to actually predict things, which in my case, I sided with Python specifically because that's what almost all data scientists use. And secondly, because SQL Server can actually run Python by default built in, and you can actually query machine learning algorithms in SQL. So the AI piece we layered on, Analytics, we've always had a really strong background. AHS has probably, I would guess, 450 people that are actually developing Tableau analytical reporting reports and visualizations, I should say. Task mining and process mining is another technology that we've layered in just in the past few months. And so the Blue Prism robotic process automation technology that we purchased, basically they've got another tool called BPPI that we've done some interesting research on using process mining to basically which ingests the log files from databases of our enterprise systems to look at our Oracle financials purchase requisition to purchase order to invoicing paid process, which is already basically resulted in 15 automation opportunities being identified. So that process mining technology is another layer. And then behind the scenes, we've got software development, and in the long future or the short future, we are looking to integrate with our ServiceNow chatbot. Ticketing system integration is another area of focus for the next 60 days. So we use ServiceNow, and so basically being able to actually use the table API in ServiceNow to basically query the tickets, find out the tickets that we can automate, assign them to our digital workers to make sure that the human workers don't work on them at the same time, update the tickets, close the tickets. And then lastly, the other technology that I'm really focused on right now is handwriting scanning. So in AHS, we have at least 3 technologies right now that we use for OCR, which is extracting the computer text from PDFs. And the next foray is really to focus on handwriting scanning, which is used in all of our patient forms, which are high volume. We're talking 20 million of one form per year kind of volumes, and so huge opportunity.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting. And the advent of sort of these additional technologies that make what we call these digital workers smarter, right? They have the ability to add on, layers of BI and visualization to see what it is that their outputs are. But also with machine learning, you get them to make smarter and smarter decisions. And then, of course, the document understanding and NLP, right? The natural language processing to be able to interpret non-structured, non-character text like handwriting has been really, really exciting. And we've seen a lot of clients that have been kind of filtering through a bunch of different platform providers for that. Some are better at handwriting than others. Some are better at extracting language than others. So they're all kind of this amalgamation of benefits, to kind of think through. And I think everybody's sort of leaning towards that as well. I wanted to ask you a little bit more about the process mining and task mining. We've seen that a lot over the last 3 years really pick up. And there's 2 places that I see it, and I'd love to see what your experience has been. Okay. So the 2 places I typically see process mining are the late adopters. So in other words, all the folks that haven't done our RPA bot yet, right? Which there's very few left organizations that don't have them. But they've been taught now, because today we say you can make decisions based on data, right? You no longer have to do a canvassing exercise of finding out ROI opportunities. There's a lot that are tried and true. There's actually some solutions. We have some, a lot of our competition does, of solutions that are already natively built and give you a head start. The other kind of person, right, or the other one is the early adopters who are now at the point of critical scale. So it's either you just started and you learned that process mining is a good approach, or you're about 3 to 5-ish years, down the road, and you're trying to figure out what else to do. So would you classify yourself as one of those categories, or is this just an experimentation? How would you see yourself fitting into that? Because it sounds like you guys are of the scale variety of finding new opportunities.
Yeah, we're definitely at the scale level. We have 80 digital workers in place right now. We'll probably 100. The goal is to have 150 by the end of March. So anyway. What triggered me on process mining is twofold. One, that obviously the key calculation of any automation program is to provide a return on investment, and so the difficulty of actually ascertaining the amount of time that it takes to do a human task manually is the only value that really matters. You know what I mean? Because you take that and then you extrapolate it to, in our case, we extrapolate it to the full year, and then we extrapolate it to the 5 years so that we can see generally, the in-year payback and then the 5-year payback. And so that key value, if it's 3 minutes, the value is completely different if it's 3.2 minutes. And so having an actual analytical mechanism to actually look at that and discern the average time statistically over a year period, in which at least that's what we're looking at in many of these from a process mining perspective, and 3 months gives you a lot better understanding of what that amount is, which basically directly changes the business case and gives it some trust that people can actually acknowledge and agree on. It's a lot more it's a lot more transparent. Now, the second reason that we end up looking into process mining is because we have right now, we don't say 30, maybe 40 different automation opportunities that are actually being in development. Our model is that all of the different department heads assign an automation champion, and that automation champion works with the department like HR, finance, CPSM, or supply chain management or IT to actually collect the automation opportunities. Now, in some cases, we have some of our departments, they have 3-4 full-time people allocated to the automation program, dedicated, collecting automation opportunities and pushing them and project managing them. And in others, we have less resources. And so in the teams that have less resources, or in the case where the automation champion isn't one of those, type A personalities that likes to really, bang on doors and collect automation opportunities, we have a gap. And the gap is we need more automation opportunities. And it's actually more important, or it's not just the level of getting a base understanding of the automation opportunities, but in principle, you want to collect an unlimited amount of automation opportunities so that you can go through, prioritize them, pick the juicy ones, and move on. And so the more automation opportunities is that lever to really provide a great return on investment. And so that's the second layer, is like we need a data-driven approach to actually collect automation opportunities in these teams that may have a hard time collecting them. Or in which case we have some departments that they often send the things that their staff hate doing, which is a great start, but we want to elevate it from kind of the 0.2, 0.3 FTE automations to the 5 FTE or maybe the 10 FTE automations, which we've been doing, which is great. So I think it really elevates. That's the only point, or not the only point, but that's the primary point of process mining, is to validate the time of each of the different tasks, and secondly, to come up with a lot more automation opportunities, because you're looking at the end-to-end process, at least within a system. Yeah.
In our world, we definitely, we say to our clients, if you don't have a streamlining continuous pipeline, you're dead on arrival. Your ROI is also going to slow down as well, right? And so we're of the mind, absolutely, that the more you can canvas, the more inputs you have of potential automation opportunities, the better. And then there's also this bucket, right, as you mature a little bit more, that is, do we still need this? Can we repair, revise, optimize, and or discard? Because sometimes what we find is that the work that we've automated 3 years ago, pieces of tasks that the human workforce sort of absorbs and consumes a new approach to it. And then some of the automations become null and void as well, in the new world. So there's always a continuation of understanding what automations are in production, which ones are actually viable, which ones are actually, continuing to provide value. And then what is it that we need to amend along the way? And what we've really found is that, the process mining advent, whatever tool you use, is the best way to kind of aggregate a subset of data that you couldn't really necessarily see before, right? Because everybody has a different opinion, right? It's either I don't like this job, or I do it a lot, but maybe the other person doesn't. And process mining really allows you to have sort of a holistic view of what's really going on without bias, right? And so I think that's a really great advent. So the last thing I wanted to ask you about, Jesse, and especially given your analytics background, a lot of places where COE leaders or folks that are rising and understanding that they're about to scale this automation program or start it off. One of the things a lot of my clients struggle with, and they come to me, and so I always like to ask folks like you, is what is the best way to continuously deliver and communicate what we're delivering? So do you guys have a cadence or a best practice or something that you've instituted to help the stakeholders and the automation champions understand that feedback loop of what they've done? Could you describe that a little bit for us, please?
Yeah, happy to. So yeah, at the high level, our basically our program is structured so we have both. We have executive sponsors directly from the direct reports to the CEO. And in our organization, that's a big thing because we have 127,000 employees, if not more. And so the having those two executive sponsors, they attend our automation program, our governance committee meetings, and we have a monthly cadence. So every month we're basically reviewing all the automations that are actually in the pipe being processed, that have been received by the automation governance committee. And then in addition to that, each of the automation champions basically do a presentation and share the work that's heading down toward the automation governance committee. And so you've got kind of that demand side, which shows us that the teams are kind of working and collecting automation opportunities. Then we've got the work that's actually taking place. And then in addition to that, I've got a section in the agenda to review all of the automations and where we're at in total. And that total measure, in our case, we use Tableau, but I mean, you could use Power BI, or frankly, a lot of the actual robotic RPA solutions actually provide this. But we have automations that save time at the queue item level, for example, an Excel document. And then we have automations that actually save time at the sub queue level, which would be kind of a row in an Excel document. So depending on the automation type, whether it's the queue or the sub queue, we can actually save the amount of time that each one is saving. Not just at the successfully processed queue item level, but the successfully processed business exception. And so, because sometimes business exceptions actually save time. So for every automation, we have the number of minutes that's from process mining, task mining, and these other mechanisms. We use the Blue Prism capture tool as well. But either way, that measure, we do actually report on our amount of minutes that have been saved for every automation down to the minute every 15 minutes. It's real time or near real time. So we have a dashboard that actually shows all of that as well, that people can look at it at any time. And then naturally, there's a lot of different presentations that we do to build awareness. We do, raise awareness at the board level, at the executive level, and then at the different department leadership level. And so OCM, as you know, is the biggest component of any automation program. And so I think you got to get used to being good at presentations for sure. Yeah,
exactly. No, I definitely think those are words of wisdom. Get good at presentations, because while we're optimizing and innovating everything, let's be honest, Excel and PowerPoint are not going away in this lifetime. So we still have to be good at delivering that data. Well, Jesse, thank you so much. This has been so informative, and I think a lot of people can really glean insight from your very colorful, and IT found its way to this business process technology space. I think that's a really, really cool story. And it was just such a pleasure to meet you this year. And I look forward to hearing about how next year goes for you guys.
Thanks so much, Paula. Thanks so much for the invite.